Assalamu alaikum YouTube. I'm back with another video, just following up on the last video that I posted, at least the first video that I posted in about a year. Still here in Egypt, alhamdulillah. I'm probably about a couple of days or maybe like a week away from it being 2 months since I've been here. I just stopped right now at a mall just to get some coffee real quick, and thought I would chop it up with you guys post Taraweeh. So it's Ramadan right now. We're in the last 10 nights, alhamdulillah. First and foremost, appreciate the du'as, appreciate the prayers. Don't think that I don't return them, like I'm not praying for you as well. I appreciate it, whether you drop it in the comments or whether you're somebody who's just making a genuine du'a. I appreciate it, especially in these last 10 nights. It's super important to receive all the barakah that we can, all the ajr that we can, and of course all the du'as that we can. So yeah, I'm on my way back home. I was able to find an apartment out here, alhamdulillah, but the apartment that I found is pretty far from my home in Egypt, Wust al-Balad, the downtown area, the Masjid al-Azhar, Masjid al-Hussein area, Sayyida Zainab area, which was like my inauguration into Egypt. So I live pretty far, so I'm just on my way back, traveling back home from Masjid al-Azhar. I like to break my fast there with all the people there, and then pray Isha and Taraweeh in Masjid al-Hussein, which is amazing. So I'll probably insert a clip of that in here, inshallah, if I can. I've seen some of the comments. Some of you guys have even sent me some questions via email. I try not to spend too much time on the YouTube Studio app, so I'm not going to be able to respond to everything. But whenever there's a question that I come across that I feel like, may be beneficial to other people as well to hear, then I'll try to answer it in the form of a video. That way it just makes it a little easier, a little more engaging, and it can reach more people who might be able to benefit, inshallah. And one question that someone brought up, they were curious to know how I was able to make the progress that I've been able to make while living in Canada, living in Toronto. First and foremost, of course, it's tawfiq from Allah, first and foremost. But there's definitely an element of, I think it would boil down to me just saying that prioritizing the Quran really helped me. The aim for me, from the jump has been to, connect with the Quran on a deeper level, and in the language that Allah Ta'ala revealed it in. It's an Arabic Quran. So I think that's always been a goal of mine. Again, I think I've told you guys in some of the previous videos, I wasn't born Muslim. So I didn't grow up hearing a lot of Arabic sounds or hearing the Quran around me, etc. So this should be a motivation and inspiration to anyone who's trying to learn the Quran, who's trying to learn the Arabic language. This isn't something exclusive to me or some, special intellectual prowess that I have or anything like that. Allah Ta'ala tells us in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. And it's a testament to that fact. There are plenty of people who, even for those of you who are, trying to learn how to read Arabic script and learn the alphabet, and you're thinking it's super difficult. No, there are plenty of people who have done this in a very short period of time. You could do this within a week, inshallah, and it's very easy. There are plenty of people who recite the Quran and who can read Arabic script even without knowing the meanings of the words, right? This is possible. They have this conference in Toronto yearly called the RISC conference. So some of you may know, people from, America, people from different parts of the world even will travel there to that conference. It's a pretty big conference, the RISC conference. And back in 2014, they had something called a knowledge retreat where they brought, different shuyukh from different places all over the world to come there and teach, certain texts or teach certain topics or subjects. Alhamdulillah, back in 2014, December 2014, I went. I believe it was 2014. And, prior to this, there's a brother named Ahmed. He took me through the alphabet. So he showed me the letters, right? Twice, right? Alif, ba, ta, tha, etc. And there was like a 2-day period. And I kind of said to myself, man, this is too difficult. The sounds, especially the ra, that the sounds, it was just it was too much for me. So I kind of backtracked a little bit. But during this conference, the knowledge retreat, I was waiting at the doors of the hall where they would be teaching. And I met this brother named Sanan. And his last name starts with a kha. I won't put his name out there, his business all on the internet. But he's from Florida, mashallah. He was studying to become a doctor. So hopefully he's been able to achieve that and more, But yeah, man, we just clicked immediately. And I had my notebook with me. And I had that book that teaches you the letters and how to connect them, what they look like when they're at the beginning of a word, what they look like when they're, in the middle or between two letters and at the end, and just how to connect them, the kasratain, dhammatain, fathatain, etc. And I had that with me. And he said, you don't know how to read Quran? I said, no. You know, I'm trying to learn how to read the Arabic script still. I know the alphabet. I'm trying to learn how to read the Arabic script. And mashallah, his recitation was amazing. Amazing tajweed, young brother. And he said, you know, like, yo, I teach people back in Florida. I teach like young kids how to pronounce letters. I teach young kids how to, you know, how to read the Quran. I teach them tajweed, etc. Like, I can help you out. And this knowledge retreat went on from morning to like 10 p.m. It was late at night. And there was obviously breaks in between and stuff like that. And this is the time he would take out to teach me every day. Teach me the letters, make sure I'm pronouncing them properly, teaching me tajweed simultaneously while teaching me, you know, taking me throughout this text, giving me little exercises to do. Mashallah, he was a great teacher, man. And yeah, by the end of like the 5-6 days that we were there, you know, we got to the end of the book where, you know, I was just reading, you know, that portion where you're connecting the letters. And he was like, bro, this is Quran, right? You're reading Quran. So that was like a really like special moment for me. You know what I mean? And like I said, that was like 5-6 days. There are some people who do that in less. So, you know, for those of you who might be struggling with that or thinking that it's super tough and you'll never be able to get the sounds right and this, that, and the third, you know, ask Allah Ta'ala to make it easy for you. And I ask Allah to make it easy for you. It really is easy though. You know what I'm saying? And there's plenty of free videos online that you can check out that can help you in terms of, you know, just reading the Arabic script. But I think it's also important for us to have teachers. You know what I'm saying? It's very important for us to find teachers. And in some places where we are, it can be difficult, especially just finding teachers who will, you know, dedicate some time to teaching you, you know, especially in the West and in Toronto. It can be difficult. But, you know, we have to be resourceful as well, because I think it's very important to have teachers who can help you, who can correct you. And of course, there was still some work that needed to be done afterwards. It wasn't like 6 days that I got through like learning how to read and connect these letters. No, you need to have a certain level of proficiency. I wasn't fast at reading. There were some things that I was still slipping up with in my pronunciation as I would recite. So afterwards as well, me and him would connect over Zoom, and he would listen to my recitation, correct me, etc. So I'm not saying that in 5 days, man, you'll be just tajweed, mashallah, you know, like, you know, Qari status. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that you can definitely grasp the Arabic alphabet and how to read and connect letters and all that, and even tajweed simultaneously very easily. And I think that's priority, because even while I'm out here in Egypt, people are like, man, like your pronunciation is really good. And it's because of listening to the Quran, you know, giving a certain level of, you know, attention to tajweed, to properly pronouncing the letters. You know, this is Quran. And prioritizing the Quran, I think, has always been a key for me. So yeah, I mean, you know, if you really want clear pronunciation in your Arabic speaking as well, really this comes from Quran. This comes from learning how to pronounce these letters from their proper makhraj, from learning tajweed, taking the time out to, you know, recite the Quran, to listen to the Quran, and things like that. So very important, you know, as a foundational step. And of course, if you're watching these videos, you're probably someone who knows how to read already. There are many people who can, but there's also many people who might not have been consistent with it. Sometimes it's not even that it's hard, it's that you're not really consistent with it. And that's why I think it's very important for you to have a teacher. For all of us, in whatever we're learning, you should have a teacher who you can sit with at some point, that can correct you, that can give you some insight, and that can help you avoid some of the pitfalls that will just kind of cause you to plateau or even just kind of barricade you from making some progress. So number one, you know, prioritize the Quran. And of course, you know, I wanted to connect with the Quran on a deeper level, like I said, in the language that Allah Ta'ala revealed the Quran in, to build a direct connection with Allah, to build a direct connection with Kalamullah. You know, for those of you who are new Muslims that are listening, or newly practicing Muslims, or even those of you who are just, you know, considering taking your Shahada, etc., and you have a translation of the Quran, you know, don't mistake what I'm about to say and what I'm saying on this channel about the Arabic language and the importance of certain things to mean that, you know, you have to know the Arabic language in order to benefit from the blessings and guidance and wisdom of the Quran. You don't, right? You know, just from a translation of the Quran in whatever language that you speak, you can gather everything that you need to attain success in this life and in the hereafter, right? So don't mistake what I'm saying here. But, you know, if you're someone who has that same type of ambition and that same type of goal, right, to connect with the Quran in the Arabic language, then there's certain things that you need to have as a foundation. And we're not looking for, quick knowledge here. We're looking for beneficial knowledge. So take your time, right? Take your time in terms of, learning the Arabic letters, how to pronounce them properly, learning tajweed simultaneously, spending a lot of time with the Quran, spending a lot of time listening to the Quran. This is going to help you to pick things up more quickly, to pick up these sounds more quickly. And also, there's blessings in that, there's benefit in that. So don't neglect it, right? And don't think this is something that you need to rush through. Yes, I was able to learn how to, recite the Quran and connect the Arabic letters, etc., in less than a week. And there are people who have done it in less. But it doesn't mean that you have to, if you're not getting the letters down packed and their sounds and reciting the Quran in less than a week or less than a month, that it's not something that's for you or it's too difficult. No, I mean, it's just, it depends on obviously the amount of effort you put in. What I was doing was really intensive as well. The whole day, pretty much throughout every break, I was working with him on reciting the Quran, practicing the letters, how to pronounce the letters, tajweed, little things like that, right? I'm not saying that I knew all the terminology for all the rules, but I knew how to merge certain letters and things like that. I think this is extremely important, right? On a foundational level. The next step for me, of course, because like I said, I was prioritizing Quran over everything. So now you know how to read, the letters, basic tajweed, how to connect these letters. You're reading at a fluent level. So the next step for me was to study the Ajurumiyya. And obviously I did that with a teacher. And the Ajurumiyya is a foundational text on Arabic grammar. I learned all of these concepts with English as the main mode of communication. So I got these basic, foundational grammar rules from the Ajurumiyya. And I kind of take you guys through the same process of how I learned the Arabic language through the text that I wrote. I literally got the basic, foundational rules of grammar from the Ajurumiyya, which is a small text. After I got some of the basic rules of learning what types of words there are in the Arabic language, learning about the ism, how to identify an ism, how to identify a verb, etc. Learning about the different states of an ism, right? Then I moved on to learning about verbs, okay? And I memorized the 10 verb forms. So there's 10 verb forms in the Arabic language that will unlock for you thousands of different words in different formats. You don't need to memorize countless different verbs individually, because also when you memorize these 10 forms, you can plug in certain verbs that are very commonly used, right? Know how to conjugate these verbs in all of their different states. Commonly used verbs like ذهب, يذهب, to go, right? أراد, يريد, to want something, right? Little stuff like this. And I'm also learning simultaneously how to use the dictionary. So now anytime I come across a word, I know that it's on a base form of 3 letters, for example, mainly. And I could search those words up myself, learn them, conjugate them with ease. So there's no need to memorize thousands of different verbs. You memorize some common verbs, plug them into one of these 10 different forms, right? Whatever forms they fall upon, and utilize them, right? You'll constantly be recalling them, and you'll be able to plug in any word that you come across afterward on these different patterns, right? So now you're saving yourself a ton of time, right? So i'rab and sarf are extremely beneficial, right? Grammar and morphology. So once I've got down these basic rules of Arabic grammar, right? And really all you're doing is figuring out, well, what is this tanween at the end of a word? Yani dhammatain, kasratain, fathatain. What does this mean? That's literally what i'rab is. Right? So you've already learned that there's dhammatain, fathatain, kasratain at the end of these words in the Quran, right? All you're doing now is basically extending your knowledge to understand what does this actually mean, right? That's what i'rab is, the changing of the ending of these words, right? Because they're conveying certain meanings. That's all. You need that basic knowledge. For people saying that, you don't need to worry about i'rab, you don't need to worry about grammar, just memorize words, etc. I don't agree with this at all. I think it's very important that you have somewhat of a foundation of understanding. You don't need to be a grammarian. Just like you don't need to be a faqih. You don't need to be some jurist in Islamic jurisprudence to know how to pray properly. But there are some basic foundational things that you do need to know. You need to know what are the fara'id of wudu. For example, what breaks your wudu? What are the arkan of the salah, for example? There's certain basic things you need to know. You don't just say, khalas, let me pray. I know how to make ruku, sujood, etc. No, there's certain things you need to know in order to pray. But it doesn't mean you need to be a faqih. Likewise, there's certain things that you need to know in regards to tajweed, etc. And how to pronounce words properly from their, from their correct makhraj, from their correct exiting point or point of articulation, before you just start reading the Quran. I mean, this is kalamullah. Likewise, there's certain basic, foundational things that you need to know for taking benefit from the Quran in terms of its meanings, in terms of its guidance, right? And that's i'rab, that's sarf, that's balagha, even at a basic level. And at that basic level, you can build on that, right? Don't mistake, speaking fluency, because speaking comes easy, especially if you're in an Arab-speaking environment, right? Being here for these past 2 months has shown me that. Connecting with other students who have only been here for like a month or two, if you hear them speaking, mashallah, right? Amazing, right? Being in an environment where Arabic is constantly around you, especially in a place like Egypt, it's like a cheat code. It's not like when you're back home. Back home, you have to improvise. Back home, you have to be resourceful, right? It's not that you can't achieve that. You can, but you have to be more resourceful. In a place like the Gulf, like Dubai or Abu Dhabi, and these places where there's a lot of foreigners and people that are speaking English all the time, it's going to be harder for someone to really practice their Arabic and really work on building vocabulary and these types of things, because they don't necessarily need to communicate in Arabic. In Egypt, that's a different story. But even with speaking, right, you need basic i'rab and sarf and these types of things. It's going to help you. It's only going to help you. Okay, it's helped me immensely being in Egypt, immensely. And we just covered, for example, I just covered on the channel how to formulate a nominal sentence. How many lessons is that? 14, right? So you know how to make a basic jumla ismiya. And I can give you an example of how practical that is. You also know how to make fragments in the Arabic language. Sifa wa mawsuf fragment. The mudaf ilay fragment. I'm going to show you how practical this is. This is a real example as well. I went into a particular school in Egypt that I enrolled in, and I go into the office. Nobody speaks English, right? What do I say? Ana talibun jadidun, right? For any of you who know basic grammar, you can translate that. Even if you've just watched up to this point, you can translate that. Ana, yani I. This is a jumla ismiya right here, and the sifa wa mawsuf fragment as the khabar, right? Ana talib jadid. I am a new student. Khalas. Okay? This is only going to help you. You know the word ana. You know the word talib, right? Just from those lessons right there. Jadid, new. If that's a new word, you put that in your book, right? You put that in your book and recall that every so often, right? Then they may ask you, and we haven't got to verbal sentences yet, but I just mentioned this same verb, arada yuridu. Then they're going to say, yani, mada turid? What do you want? For example, right? I want this particular document that shows that I'm enrolled in school, etc. Simple stuff like that, right? So if you know how to formulate a simple jumla ismiya and a simple jumla fi'liya, you're good. For those of you who are, watching, you're just starting your Arabic learning journey, you're midway through, you're restarting your Arabic journey after some time, maybe you fell off a little bit, whatever, learn from other people's mistakes. Take the advice that people are giving you. Like what I'm saying on here is not law. It's just things that have worked for me, that have benefited me, in terms of reading the Quran and understanding the Quran in the Arabic language, reading books in Arabic as well, tafsir, things like that. I'll leave it to you guys to do, a little bit of research, because I don't want to make this super academic. I want to make this something where it's like, just some mutual advice, some brotherly advice, whatever. But I'll leave it to you guys to do a little bit of research into, what the scholars of the past, what the imams of the past, any science, particularly the Arabic language, have said about i'rab. But one of the things that it's actually narrated that Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anh, right, the companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, يعني تعلموا إعراب القرآن كما تتعلمون حفظه, right? Give the same amount of studious attention, right? Study and learning to i'rab of the Quran, to the grammar of the Quran, to how words are used in the Quran, to the placement of words in the Quran, as you give to its hifz, right? And today we've reduced hifz to just memorizing words. Memorizing the Quran, yani preservation of the Quran in terms of its meanings. Pondering and reflecting on the meanings of the Quran. What good are the words of the Quran if you don't understand them, you don't take from its guidance, you're not reflecting on it, you're not pondering on it? How can you do that without i'rab as well, right? There are plenty of people who think they understand what they're reading and they actually don't. You know, I myself have come across it. Where people are conveying certain things that they've read thinking they understand it and they actually don't. And there's plenty of examples of this out there that you can find. So don't think that even, you know, speaking Arabic fluently means that someone understands text, what's happening, especially in books where there's no harakat, etc. Don't think that this means that it translates to interpreting the Quran, the meanings of the Quran. We need these things simultaneously to be able to ponder and reflect on the Quran. Take from the advice of people and learn from the mistakes of people as well. Like I said in some of my earlier videos, when I give some of these, like, you know, some of these reminders and advices, they're to myself first and foremost, but it's also to help you take it a step further than I did. There were a lot of points in time where I plateaued, where I was, you know, where there were certain things that I wasn't able to work on, you know, to their full extent and to my full potential, because I just didn't know where to go next or what to do next. And I kind of had to, you know, go through the motions. You dig what I'm saying, in terms of learning the Arabic language. So take from the advice of people and learn from their mistakes, and that's going to help you take things further. And my advice, you know, from experience is to tell you guys, don't take any sort of imbalanced approach to learning the deen or to learning the Arabic language or anything at all, okay? Try to always take a holistic approach. And a holistic approach is not leaving grammar, leaving sarf, and just focusing on this one thing, right? Try to incorporate these things simultaneously. Some of the most effective language schools, this is what they're able to do, right? You're able to see, reading, you're seeing the expressions on the face or the gestures of the person that's speaking to you. You're hearing the Quran, you're listening, you're hearing people speak. You're hearing their dialect, you're hearing their pronunciation, you're hearing their accent. You're able to think about what's being said, you're able to process it, to ponder it. You're able to speak and repeat, right? So don't take any sort of imbalanced approach. You know, always try to take a holistic approach. And of course, you know, if you're not in an Arab-speaking country, it doesn't mean you can't achieve these things. In some of my previous videos, I think I mentioned about, you know, watching certain shows like the Ahmed ibn Hanbal series in Arabic. Right, slowing it down if you need to initially, then speeding it up to normal pace to pick up on those words, right? Just, you know, there are plenty of words that I've memorized that when I'm hearing them spoken, I can't pick up on them as easily. You know, now that's a little better, but it's different when people have a certain accent, right? They might be using a word that you've memorized in a different form and in a different context, right? You're gonna need to pick up on that stuff, and that doesn't come through just memorization, right? Nor does it come through just i'rab or sarf. We have to take a holistic approach. The next step for me though, when I had that basic foundational level of grammar and that basic foundational level of sarf, morphology, right? And these verb forms and how to use the dictionary, that's a solid enough starting point for you to be able to read texts now. And I think I've made a video as well about some texts that I would recommend, like Al-Qira'atul Rashida, which takes you through levels of different conversations, you know, excerpts from the Quran, some poems, some excerpts from classical texts like the texts of Imam al-Ghazali and stuff like that, which is very beneficial. It takes you through levels, repeating some words, seeing some words being used. I actually used this book, I'm reading back through it again, and I'm benefiting from it so much, even more now that I'm actually in an environment where I'm constantly hearing Arabic and using Arabic. And you can benefit from this too because it's beginner friendly, right? It's gonna help you build vocabulary, but there's also some exercises at the back of the text with questions asking you about the story that you're gonna have to write. You know, you write in Arabic, you write your answers. You know, it shows that you're thinking about what's being said. It's gonna help you retain these words better, right? So that's why this book is really great. Also, Tafsirul Jalalain, right? Tafsir of the Quran. It's a nice, concise tafsir that is very beneficial to read. It's gonna help you to build your Arabic vocabulary as well, but also benefit from the meanings of the Quran, right? Same with Tafsir Ibn Kathir. Right, I think I mentioned in some previous videos as well, the Arabic in Tafsir Ibn Kathir is extremely easy, okay? It's extremely easy, right? Find a good print and that will be very beneficial for you. Especially, like I said, if you have that basic level of grammar, you have that basic level of sarf, and you know how to use the dictionary, you're golden, okay? But also, like I said, don't neglect having a teacher, okay? Don't neglect having a teacher. Find a teacher if you can. That's very beneficial. So reading, like I said, listening to, in whatever capacity you can, like even if you're not in an Arabic speaking country, right? There was this channel I came across, Language Lords, where it's this guy who's got fluent in speaking certain languages. One of the things that he would do is some of the programs that he would use the most on his computer, he would change that to the language that he's trying to learn. So for example, if you use Instagram or Facebook or whatever, changing it to the language that you're trying to learn. Like I mentioned before as well, watching shows or movies or certain things in a particular language. Maybe some durus online where people are speaking clear Arabic. That's going to really benefit you. Okay. Also, speaking, even if you're just speaking to the wall, right? Even if you're just speaking to yourself, speaking, try to practice your speaking early. And again, you want to try to find people, even in your community. Maybe you're in a cafe, you see someone who's Arab and they speak Arabic. Maybe try practicing your speaking with them, right? Listening to Quran a lot as well to help you with your listening. One of the things that has benefited me and that I've spoken to many other students as well, that has benefited them greatly is writing things in their journal, whatever it is that happened in the day, whatever, just writing things down. And one of the things that I do as well, I roll around with this little notebook, and anytime I come across a new word, I put it in this notebook, right? Or a word that I know, but I haven't heard it in that particular context before. And what this has done for me is, like, each time I put a word in this book, it's connected to an experience. So the moment I put it in the book, I don't even need to look at the book again. I remember that word. Anyone who's taught me something beneficial, I remember the moment it was taught to me and I remember that person. And I'll give you an example of this. When I was a kid, my mom sent me down the hallway in my building to ask one of our neighbors, Mrs. Chapman, for something. So I went to the end of the hallway, knocked on her door. She answered. I said, good afternoon, Mrs. Chapman, because my mom was really serious about that, right? Whenever you see adults, whenever you see people, if it's morning, you say good morning. If it's afternoon, you say good afternoon. If it's evening, you say good evening, right? And you don't call people by their first name, especially your elders. You know what I mean? So I said, good afternoon, Mrs. Chapman. My mom sent me here to ask you if we could have an onion, right? Now, some of you don't even see anything wrong with that sentence. But she said to me, it's not a onion, it's an onion, right? Whenever the word after starts with a vowel, you don't say you say an. Think about this. I remember this since I was a kid. Now, every time, like almost literally, anytime I say an in a sentence, I remember that moment. I remember her. I remember the person who taught it to me, right? So when these words are connected to these experiences, it makes it easier for you to, retain these words. And of course, obviously, if they're constantly being used. And I have plenty of words in this book, right? I'm not afraid to ask people in Arabic, what does this mean? Sometimes they will express it to you with an illustration or a gesture or another word that's more commonly used in Arabic that you can fully grasp. So I put it in this book. Sometimes I'll have people write the word that I'm asking about in my book, right? And this has been very beneficial for me, especially in Egypt, because this is how I learned that Egyptians don't pronounce certain letters. So think about this. I never learned this in a book. I learned this by dealing with people in the streets, bringing this book around and having someone just, write in the book what this word is that I'm asking about. And basically I was in a cell phone shop to renew my phone plan. She was giving me this plan, but I'm like, I don't need that much data and stuff like that. And basically she said, okay, there's a lower plan. And she used the word a'al. So I said, ma ma'na a'al? I've never heard this word before. What is this? So I had to write it in my book because I'm like, I've never heard this word before. And she was actually saying aqal. I said, aqal. She said, yeah, but in Arab, in Egypt, we don't pronounce the qaf. That was a learning lesson right there for me, right? And they have this place in Egypt called Duiya, right? Duiya. They say Duiya, but it's actually Duiqa, okay? So by having a notebook, you can benefit so much. Putting any new words that you learn, words that are connected to an experience. Maybe just something that I'm constantly hearing people say. Sometimes there's words that they really start to stand out to me after a few days. Maybe after a week, people keep saying this word. Then I finally ask someone, what is this person saying? What is this expression they're using, right? I'm not afraid to tell people, I don't understand what you're saying, right? Because the Egyptian dialect is very slangy. It's very slangy, and that brings me to my next point for people who are trying to, learn Arabic speaking and just Arabic in general in Egypt, it is very beneficial, but it's also it can be a difficult learning curve, right? It can be a difficult learning curve because, amongst your teachers, amongst all the students that there are, especially because a lot of students, even though, they're foreigners, it doesn't mean they necessarily speak English. So the main language that binds us together is Arabic. So we'll be communicating in Arabic, but it's going to be Fusha. So you're going to be communicating in Fusha amongst the students, amongst the teachers, in certain areas. But in the streets of Egypt, they're speaking the Egyptian dialect mainly. And it can be really difficult to pick up on because it's very slangy. Like I said, it's not close to Fusha, right? It's not. It's very slangy. They mush their words together a lot. And it's almost like a Creole, right? So that's why I say it's a steep learning curve, because you're speaking amongst your teachers and all these students and people like that. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people who do know how to speak Fusha in Egypt. Don't get me wrong, because they have such a strong connection to the Quran here. But mainly you're speaking with your peers and your teachers in Fusha, and then you get on the streets and it's the Egyptian dialect, which is super tough to pick up on initially. And there's still a lot that I'm learning and like trying to pick up on their tongue. Speaking comes easy, man. It gets very easy over time, especially, like I said, if you're in an environment that's primarily Arabic speaking. Naturally, you're going to pick up on these things very easy. But, the reason why I say it's also very beneficial, even though it's a steep learning curve, is because, yes, you're learning Fusha and you're speaking Fusha, of course, for, the purpose of connecting with the Quran and the texts that pertain to the Quran, the sciences of the deen, etc. And just being able to speak and understand the pure Arabic language. And then in the streets, you're forced to learn the Egyptian dialect. You're forced to speak the Egyptian dialect, which is very beneficial. You're feeding two birds with one stone, as they say, right? So it's very beneficial in that sense. And just, of course, again, being able to speak, being able to listen. So very important, in summary. I don't even know where I left off. I try to keep my videos super short because I don't want to just end up rambling and lose people and even lose my train of thought. But hopefully I've covered everything. I think, like I said, main thing is prioritization of the Quran. Really prioritizing the Quran, not just, memorizing words and pondering the meanings, because the Quran is the most beautiful, perfect usage of the Arabic language, with so many beautiful rhetorical devices being used. It's a shame to just kind of take this minimalistic approach and reduce it to just memorizing words instead of pondering and reflecting on, this is the final revelation, guidance, healing for the hearts, the whole nine. So it's a shame to just try to reduce it to something so minimalistic. Don't substitute anything for the Quran. If there's real progress that I've made in the Arabic language, it's because of my prioritization of the Quran. And anyone you meet who knows Fusha, who speaks Fusha, etc., I guarantee you it's because of their relationship with the Quran. One of the things that the Prophet ﷺ said is that, one of the signs of the end of times is that, people will recite the Quran in beautiful melodious tones, but it won't reach past their throats, i.e. it won't reach their hearts, right? It won't reach their hearts. It's healing for the hearts, right? It's purification for the hearts. It's something to soften the hearts. Or you could look at it like it won't reach their intellect. They won't think about it. They won't ponder on it, right? They won't do tadabbur of the Quran, right? Which is to get to the end of something, right? To fully understand it, to really ponder its meanings deeply and take from its guidance, right? So definitely prioritization of the Quran first and foremost. If there's any progress that I've made in Arabic, that would be the main thing that I would say. Prioritization of the Quran. That includes tajweed, that includes i'rab, sarf, vocabulary, balagha, right? And reading, listening, speaking to whatever extent you can in these things. If you're not in an Arab-speaking country, you want to take a holistic approach at all times. Try always to take a holistic approach to whatever you're learning. And look, if you're looking for quick knowledge, it doesn't exist. Drop your USB stick off at the nearest ma'had to you, the nearest kulliyah, the nearest university, whatever, and pick it back up in the next week or something, if that's what you're trying to do. We don't need quick knowledge. We don't need to hasten anything, guys. We need beneficial knowledge. We ask Allah Ta'ala for beneficial knowledge. And that sometimes that may come quickly. That may be something that Allah Ta'ala gives you quickly. But I don't think it's something that should be sought in the sense of, I need to learn this quickly and how do I do it and what tips and tricks. And there is no tips and tricks. We got to be studious. We got to put in the effort. We got to put in the work, and Allah Ta'ala will open doors for us, right? We have to be studious, and we have to be consistent. We have to be consistent. We have to show up. And even though it's difficult, we push through. And those are the moments where we learn the most. Those are the moments where Allah Ta'ala opens so many doors for us. You know what I mean? So in summary, definitely want to prioritize the Quran. I think I made this video longer than I expected for it to be, or I intended it to be. Hopefully it's beneficial. But that's really how I made progress, right? And like I said, there are plenty of people who read things that they think they understand, or say things that they think they're conveying correctly, and they're not, right? So that's why we have to take a holistic approach. You know, if there's words that you're constantly using, you're going to memorize them anyway, right? So, you know, try to take a holistic approach, like I said, and, you know, inshallah, you'll be set. Hopefully I didn't go off on too much of a tangent, but to complete this video, all I'll say is that, you know, on my channel, I'm not trying to say that my way is the way. I already told you guys in some of my earlier videos, you have to do what works for you, but you do need to take a holistic approach, not an approach where you're kind of minimizing certain things or, you know, isolating certain things. No, you have to try to take a holistic approach. And depending on where we are and what we have access to, whether that's funds, whether that's teachers, whatever that may be, we got to be resourceful. There's always going to be some type of challenge in whatever we're trying to seek. You know what I'm saying? So especially if we're trying to seek, you know, knowledge of the deen and anything that's going to benefit us or be positive and have a positive impact on our lives and the lives of the people around us, you know, there's going to be some sort of difficulty. There's going to be some sort of challenges. Right, so we have to be resourceful, and we got to be, you know, we got to work hard. You know, you got to be studious, and inshallah, Allah will open doors. These are some things that have worked for me, that have worked for other students. I'm sure you can find plenty of other videos where people talk about this and share with you their experience, and there are some things that may coincide. You may agree, you may disagree, and that's fine. You know what I'm saying? That's completely fine. You don't have to take my advice at all. This is what has worked for me. And even just, you know, being in Egypt, like I said, you know, being in a place where people speak the Arabic language, it's like a cheat code, you know what I'm saying? But there's still so much to learn here. You know, even with all that effort that I put in Toronto, in Canada, there's still so much. There's still so much to learn about the Arabic language, especially, you know, in terms of improving my speaking ability and reaching a level of like complete fluency. There's still a lot to learn, you know. And I guess I'll just kind of end this video with something that my teacher would always remind us of, and it's something that his father would always remind him of. A good student never graduates. You know what I'm saying? We remain students, and inshallah, you know, we remain sincere students. Prioritize the Quran, put in the work that you need to put in, and that's going to come with some sacrifices. We ask Allah Ta'ala to make it easy and open doors for us, but, you know, there's people who have strengths in one area and weaknesses in other areas, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to, not just in Egypt, but wherever we are, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to kind of fortify and strengthen those areas that we're weakened. There's some people who their speaking ability is amazing, mashallah, but they're in the lower levels of certain Arabic programs because they do need to grasp, you know, I'rab, Sarf, Balagha, and these types of things if they're trying to, you know, do some further study and understand things on a deeper level. And then there are people, the opposite, where they do understand, you know, Sarf, Balagha, but their speaking ability needs work. You know what I mean? So everybody's at different levels, at different stages. Those areas where you find that you're weak, you got to take from all of these different, you know, people who are giving advice, who have actually made some significant progress, and again, kind of, you know, adapt it to your situation and what works for you. Not everyone's approach is going to be the same, because not everyone is coming from the same background, the same circumstances, and, you know, having the same availability or access to certain resources. So like I said, you know, you got to adapt things to your situation, but try to immerse yourself in the language as much as you can. And a big part of that is just prioritizing the Quran. You know, it's only going to help you. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to benefit you immensely, whatever your goals are. So I think I've been talking for way too long. Hopefully you find some benefit in everything that I've said in the video at some point in it. I don't know how long it's gonna be after I cut some parts out, because I don't think I'm gonna make this the time that it's showing me on my camera. Yeah, I'll leave it at that, and inshallah, until the next video, keep leaving, keep sending me your questions through, and I'll try my best to answer them, inshallah. And there's also other things that I could potentially be able to show you while I'm out here in Cairo, if there's certain things that people want to know. There was another question that I probably just need to answer in another video about someone who was, thinking about, coming to Egypt. So maybe there's certain things that I'll, elaborate further on, or share, or do a little bit of research on, so that I can give you guys a clearer perspective, inshallah. And yeah, till next time. Assalamu alaikum.
عفوك ورضاك يا رب عفوك ورضاك عفوك ورضاك وحسن لقاك وحلمك على من عصاك يا رب صل على الحبيب محمد يا رب صل على الحبيب محمد واكتب لنا في الحشر واكتب لنا في الحشر أن نلقاه يا رب واحشرنا بظل لوائه يا رب واحشرنا بظل لوائه ثم اسقنا في الحشر من يمناه يا